Greetings, it's your brother Beniti Amon Ray, back with another class. What I want to talk about today, um, kind of some of the topics that we've been talking about last couple of weeks on the radio show, kind of variation of those different topics, different things that kind of relate to the field that we're going to get into. What I still kind of hear from some of the communications I've had throughout the weeks, and from some of the things that I'm seeing, still have to get across the point, and this only applies to those it applies to. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. There's still a lot of over intellectualizing on information going on, and I want to clarify that and be clear exactly what that means. Again, when you hear the term doing the work or doing the spiritual work or putting the work in, um, again, to be clear on what that's referring to is that doesn't mean reading a bunch of books. Because you could, again, read a million books, but if you're not taking that information and applying it or making it practical, that it becomes useless. You'll never get the full benefits of the information that you're studying. So there tends to be this over intellectualization of knowledge and information. Um, I go all throughout the web, and people ask me their opinions on a lot of things that you see going on in the conscious community. Um, with all these different organizations, House of Consciousness, etc. And what are my thoughts? I don't have any thoughts. I don't really care, because that's not, at the end of the day, that's not my thing, because I don't see anything getting done on a consistent basis. Now, some people might beg to differ on that, but as a whole, what is the change and what is the result? Because I'm going to leave it at that, because I don't want to rattle on about the subject. But what is the point when you have one melanated person or group of persons going up against another melanated person or group of persons? And there'll be a dual perspective on that. Some will say, well, it's good that people are coming together, exchanging information, and totally in agreement with that. But what is the ends to justify the means of the whole purpose of that debate or coming together? So that's kind of, I don't see anything productive getting done on the flip side. I just see a lot of over intellectualizing and a lot of talking and things of that nature. Now, having said that, we have to understand, when over intellectualizing information, and I've talked about people getting caught living in the past, people get stuck on the Egypt thing, or the Yoruba thing, or they get stuck. We have a bunch of us that are caught up in the extraterrestrial phenomenon, and these are all different levels of information. By all means, need to be studied, but again, I keep stressing, you can't use those informations as vehicles to go outside of yourself seeking answers. And the problem I see with the over intellectualizing is people are still trying to give solutions and answers to things that exist outside themselves. A true alchemist, a true metaphysicist, that's not how they seek, or he or she seeks truth and works with the universe, because that goes against every principle, especially when dealing with alchemy. Now, we did a show this past week on mental alchemy and the power of the mind, and again kept stressing the 7 principles of Tahuti. And again, if you are not familiar with the 7 principles of Tahuti, I keep telling people that is a great foundation or structure to go to get that roadmap, to get that guide, so you can kind of put this into perspective. But we're always referring back to that first principle: all is mental, mental is all. Um, So if you're going to things outside the mind, I'm gonna go to something in the Emerald tablets that'll kind of break this down. Um, Give me a second and let me find it. So again, if you're going outside of the mind, it's not a reality. Okay. All right. So what I want to talk about is this what we call this chaos energy, or what this potential is. I like to call it it's unlimited potential. Okay. Now, as I've mentioned before, the deity Set, some say Seth, some say Sutuk, has always been correlated to negativity or evil because people don't understand it. People get completely confused with it, and some people still look through those stories from religious eyes, as we explained previously. They look at the Satuk, the Set, and the horror story as good and bad, um, or bad, you know, connotation in general. And like I said, it represents the inner workings of the subconscious mind. Now, when dealing with that Satuk or that Set energy, Set represents the chaos energy, the deity of chaos, as titled in ancient Egypt. Now, again, if you're hearing the word chaos and you're going off on a mental rant to something negative or evil, then you are mentally a slave under the spell. You're not understanding what that means. Before you can have organization, you have to have chaos. So chaos is not limited. It's not defined. It can't be confounded. It has no limitations or boundaries. Okay, that's what the key thing to understand when dealing with what we call the chaos energy. If you define something, okay, by defining it, you limit it. So you can't, by all means, define this chaos energy or the potential of this energy. So it represents unlimited bounds. So you have to tap in to the depths of that before you can have what people are doing now and trying to organize it and intellectualize it and limiting it by just using information confounded by person, place, or thing. Now, the problem I keep stressing to people is when you get definitions of people, what the creator is, or what God is, or the divine essence, the divine being, the creator, whatever terminology you want, people constantly give you definitions confounded by person, place, or thing. You can't understand it, nor let alone understand it, but explain it and define it by the principles of person, place, or thing. This is why we talk about such aspects of astral travel, astral projection, things where you have the ability to raise up your vibration and your frequency and leave the realm of person, place, or thing so you can comprehend, for lack of a better word, the spirit world and how this all connects to you, to the universe, and you will find out that you are the creator. You are the creator in the sense you are an aspect and a fragment of that energy. Okay, the very vital life force, some call it etheric or ether, that keeps or is the very fabric of existence that keeps the universes and the multiverses together. It's the very energy, because remember, we are beings of light and energy. Many different cultures have taught this. Again, some refer to it as the vital life force, because we know when our vibrational rate speeds up and our frequency speeds up, we go back into bands of light and energy. Then there's that state of existence where one goes from a gas state, okay, and then to a liquid, to a solid. That just changed by the vibrational rate or frequency. Very clearly explained in the seven principles of Tahuti when dealing with the doctrine of vibration and also connecting it to the doctrine of rhythm. Rhythm and vibration have a large impact in understanding your existence and your place in the scheme of things. If you don't go to that spiritual level of it, you stay confined to the physical realm using holy books such as the Bible and the Quran, and using theories and faith systems and belief systems and opinion systems to try to verify things that are not real because you're using terminology that exists outside of yourself. I don't know what's so hard to comprehend that, because I constantly still see people getting into intellectual conversations and debates about, again, who was first. I see melanated people arguing and debating who was first, Samaria, Egypt, or the Hebrews. Who gives a shit? Because the bottom line at the end of the day, it holds no weight. It doesn't matter, other than the fact that it puffs your ego up if you're taking on one stand or one side or the other. Bottom line is, it's all connected. These were just very minor fragments of who and what we are and our existence. Why are we getting caught up in one aspect of our existence? And this is the problem. People want to ask, why is it, as a whole, melanated people are not taking it to the next level? As a whole, we're not talking about groups, individuals, because by all means there are people and groups that are, but as a whole, why is there not that connection on a balanced level? And it's for these reasons, because people gravitate to certain levels of information that they feel comfortable with or that they like. Now, the problem that people have, and I say this and I stand firm in this, and again, and I say this not out of ego, been doing this for over 20 years. The reason why people don't get into debates with somebody like myself who deals with the level of information, because this information transcends all that bullshit. Because this information doesn't trap you in getting caught up in a religious and a philosophical and a historical debate. It supersedes that. It goes beyond that, because at the end of the day, that's just information. It's history. It's knowledge on different levels that are only going to go take you so far. But what the problem that tends to come in is it lacks spirituality. Okay? Because I see all of these different groups and you see all the shit on Facebook, you see it on YouTube, all these different conscious communities having these get-togethers, these blog talk radio shows, these debates, these discussions on intellectual information. But I don't see information on doing the spiritual work. I don't see gatherings on performing the rituals, doing the chanting, doing the mantras, doing these spiritual healings, charging up the amulets, working our ancestral and spiritual magic that's going to change not only the energy around us, but that could change the very energy grid of the planet, which would bring in, as I've said before, that change on a collective level. Okay? This is the problem. If you want to know what the problem is, we got all the information. Melanated people have all the intellectual information they need, but the spiritual ancestral magic is lacking. Some cats don't want to talk about it, because you know why? They don't dabble in that field. They want to sit there and debate with you all day about molecules and atoms and algae and who was first and who's blacker. And bottom line, it's just pointless bullshit. Okay? It's physical information that can only go so far. Now, these same melanated people, again, as I said before, who claim they don't think like the European, while the European has gotten caught up in that babble and confusion, the European is trying to steal the magical sciences of melanated people and work spiritual magic on a mental level to keep people mentally enslaved with their systems of indoctrination and bullshit. And this goes on subconsciously through imagery, through media, through music, and unbeknownst to most, they're being controlled by this. Now, I keep stressing to people, you can easily be controlled by this on several levels. If the pineal gland is calcified, not vibrating at its correct frequency, if the alpha brain waves are not vibrating at its correct frequency, being able to be receptive to receive the spiritual energies or high levels of consciousness, it creates that veil or that wall. So then now one is easily able to be induced to be indoctrinated or programmed. So now you can be given subliminally suggestions, whether you're conscious of it or not. Um, this can have an effect on you mentally and spiritually, to a multitude of levels that you're not aware of. So this is what makes one open or ripe picking, for an individual, um, to fall off of their path and start doing shit that sometimes they'll say they don't really have an explanation for why they do some of the stuff they do. Because remember, when you talk about spiritual beings, and I know some people, again, as I said earlier, get caught up in the extraterrestrial shit. And I think the extraterrestrial phenomenon, remember, those extraterrestrials that you're talking about, I don't care if it's Greys, Palladians, all these different beings that you hear a lot of these people that are into that level of information talk about, these are also beings that are a genetic makeup of you. They are your DNA. They are you. Stop separating them again as if there's something different from you or something that's not connected to you, that's outside of you, because they have similar capacity and DNA makeup that you do. They are part of that genetic bloodline that's connected to you by DNA. But what people tend to do with that too, they create another system of beings and create another religion by saying there's extraterrestrials or highly intelligent beings that are far more superior to us. So now we're creating a extraterrestrial religion where we've created superior beings, just like they do in the Bible and the Quran, where you have angels and you have God, you have all these levels of beings and deities that go above you. And again, you are on the bottom of that chain, submitting or becoming inferior to something that you've created in the subconscious mind that's greater than you. And remember, as I said, you become your thoughts. So if you start thinking that that stuff is real, then that stuff becomes real to you. But you can't get upset to somebody that's not submerged into that fairy tale mind state if they don't agree with your ideology. This is where conflict comes in. You can't get pissed off at that person, because then people become so engulfed of what they created in their mind that's a reality, they get pissed off when people don't agree with them. Just because you think it's right doesn't make it right, because everybody's perception of reality is going to vary where they are in their spiritual journey. Now, you also will have people who don't understand how the mind works. And this topic came up on the radio show, which this connects to this mental alchemy. Somebody had asked, well, what about people that claim they're an incarnation of certain deities? Like, you see this shit all the time on Facebook. You got people on Facebook saying that they are an incarnation of Osiris, or they are an incarnation. I've seen motherfuckers say they're an incarnation of Anu, the Sumerian deity Anu. I've seen people say they're incarnations of Marduk. I've seen people on Facebook say they're incarnations of the deity called Melchizedek. And I'm going to tell you what I know based on my experience. You're a complete bumbling idiot if you fall for that, okay? If you ask my opinion on that, real simple. Real simple. Just the very fact that they are claiming to be a deity, again, that they have created outside of themselves, because they're still looking at it. If you say you're an incarnation of Osiris, then you literally think Osiris was a deity that existed outside yourself. So you're saying that this deity Osiris, you are now a physical incarnation of that deity. Now, don't get that twisted with being able to tap into the Osirian energy, or the energy that these deities represent. Don't confuse that with being an incarnation of a deity. And now you're saying physically you are an incarnation of that deity. What that tends to happen is, where that confusion comes in, when I do believe people have the ability to tap in by way of the subconscious mind to the energies that those deities represent. But then they confuse that with actually physically being an incarnation of that deity, because this question came up with channeling. Okay, what is channeling, and how does one know if they're channeling their own thoughts or the thoughts of another? Just that very statement alone, if you go back again to the 7 principles of Tuti, all is the mind and mind is the all, you can only channel the thoughts of the inner depths of your subconscious mind. How could it be the thoughts of another? Who is that another? If you have the ability, if all is mental and mental is all, and you have the ability to tap into, for lack of a better word, what they call the divine intellect or the divine consciousness, and it all comes from that mental reservoir of that one source, because collectively we're all connected to that, where is that energy or that thought process or that channeling coming from outside of that concept? Because if you do not accept the fact that you're connected to it, you're separating yourself from it. So the question is, where did you get it from? How did you bring it in? You have to still understand the mind is connected to all that. So people confuse that shit, and then they start walking around saying, I am an incarnation of this deity. And really what that comes from is a lack of insecurity, because they're afraid to deal with the real self. So it's easy to grasp to a deity that they gravitated towards, and you'll find most people that claim to be an incarnation of these deities gravitated to that specific deity, started studying about that deity, enhanced the energy of the consciousness that that deity represents. So now they've convinced themselves mentally that they are that deity. So a man thinketh he is. And in that person's mind, they are. That's no doubt, because that is their universe. They are the governor of their spirituality. So if they're walking around claiming to be that, in their mind they believe they are that, and in their mind they are. But the problem is that necessarily doesn't reflect to everybody outside of them. This is where the chaos and the confusion comes in. But what I want to read is something from the Emerald Tablets. And again, it's a book I suggested everybody definitely pick a copy of this book up. The Emerald Tablet, Alchemy for Personal Transformation by Dennis William Huck. Excellent book. This deals heavy with mental alchemy. It deals heavy with one being able to make that spiritual transformation by making themselves less dense. But let's read this real quick. Two sections I want to close with. And you'll know a true alchemist is something I want to point out at the bottom of this book. And we pointed this out also on the radio show. It says chaos philophorium in Greek at the bottom of the book. You'll see that description. Chaos. Okay? Which represents, again, as I said earlier, being able to tap into that unlimited potential that exists in the subconscious mind. That's what chaos represents. Not nothing evil, not nothing negative, because you've been programmed with that. Because remember, a lot of these concepts, it's been forced on us, and we've been given the definition since we were little of what these terms mean. So automatically when we hear these terminologies, our mind clicks. When we hear the word, it reflects back, because that's how the brain works, to the concepts that we were programmed with or what we were taught. Now, how you easily break that spell is recorrecting and making that adjustment. So now when you hear chaos, you train the mind to hear and see and feel what it really represents, and it has nothing to do with negativity. This is the trick they play with. The same thing when they want to institute an image, because I don't give a shit how black you make Jesus or how black you want to make him be, and you can pull out all the scriptures and read to me Revelations chapter 1 verse 4. See, it says, the Bible says he had woolly hair and feet like brass burned in a furnace. Who gives a shit? Bottom line is this: you can't do that after the fact, when they've already corrupted that whole dogma called Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Because bottom line is, the spell is so deep, you can make Jesus as black as you want. It still taps into the tone and frequencies. When you say that word, it conjures up a white image of Jesus. It conjures up an image that they purposely put out to stamp in your subconscious mind, the long hippie-haired Jesus, looking like a heavy metal rock star with the beard, and it conjures up images of this on the cross wearing a diaper, etc. This is done intentionally to work off the inner workings of the subconscious mind. So you can't go back and fix something that's already been fucked. You understand? Completely destroy it. Because you're wasting energy. What you do is you go beyond that. And you go to the inner depths and you tap into that chaos energy. Because remember, before you can have organization, you have to have that chaos. You have to be able to tap into that chaos. But let's read this. What is this dark and chaotic one thing we fear so much that it holds us to earth? It says, you should not fear the one thing, for you have dominion over it. It is nothing, that is something, the same substance of which your dreams are made. But your fear has turned it into your nightmare. There's that word fear again. And fear is one of the key things that hold people back from spiritually growing, because they fear going beyond what they can understand or understand from their comfort zone. Because if they step outside of it, they fear that something might not add up or make sense, or they're just afraid to venture outside of what they don't know. And that's what chaos energy represents. The unlimited potential to tap in, to expand your consciousness so you can spiritually grow. If you stay within a box and define yourself, you'll never get to that point. All right, then it goes on to say, but your fear has turned it into your nightmare, and only through its dissolution, meaning absolving it, can you reclaim your power and dream anew. So until you just dissolve that fear, nothing will ever change for you. That's making that crystal clear. For just as your dreams are fashioned by your hidden mind, so is the world dreamt by the hidden mind of God. Therefore, the thoughts of the one mind are your reality, and the presence of the one thing is your dream. And the dreamer and his dream are always one. You can't separate the two. Okay? So what's clearly being stated here is people cannot tap into the potential that this chaos energy holds due to the lack of fear. Because what people tend to do, as I've said before, when they can't explain something or something doesn't sit right with them, fear kicks in and they're quick to brush it off as being something negative or evil, only because out of their pure ignorance they don't understand it. That's the problem. And it weighs one down, makes them more dense, and they can't spiritually make that transformation. Which is going to lead me to this last part that I want to finish with. I talked about a little while back, how does one transcend person, place, or thing? Because you'll never get the full grasp spiritually of this and mentally until you're able to train the body through meditation and through astral traveling to open yourself up to these levels of consciousness and ascend and travel, for lack of a better word, these spiritual realms, to tap into these higher levels of consciousness. You'll never be able to do it. Well, here's something again from the Emerald Tablets, Alchemy for Personal Transformation. Check this out. It says, if through alchemy we are able to overcome our ignorance and change our beliefs, then how do we actually travel in these wondrous realms? I love this part right here. Once your thoughts are purified, now what did this say? Once your thoughts are purified, not fucked up, not corrupted, not infiltrated by faith, belief, and ignorance and nonsense. It says once your thoughts are purified. So let's start basic here. You got to leave all that bullshit alone. This is why you constantly hear me say you have to reprogram the subconscious mind. Because everything since birth we've been taught has been completely fucking wrong. And it doesn't make Christianity, Judaism, or Islam right now because you just want to take that same bullshit story, that same mindset that the European indoctrinated you in, and you just want to now make the characters black. Now Jesus is black, and Moses is black, and all the Israel, everything is black, 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 black. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't take away from the essence of the fictitious mindfuck that the story does by controlling you and making you a mental slave. That's the whole point. So your thoughts have to be purified before you can even spiritually travel these realms, as it says here. The ascent and the descent are as natural as breathing, meaning once you do that, to be able to attain this spiritually is just as natural as breathing. That's powerful shit. Since the above is subtle and the below is gross, the subtlest part of matter is soul, and the subtlest part of soul is spirit, and the subtlest part of spirit is God. To travel in these realms, you need only change the density of your thoughts. I keep telling people, thoughts can weigh you down. When you bring thoughts into existence, there's positive thoughts, for lack of a better word, and negative thoughts, for lack of a better word. Negative thoughts to that particular individual can have a physical effect on the body. If somebody stresses out and thinks negative thoughts all the time, strong negative thoughts on a regular basis, they can become sick. It starts affecting the physical body. So thoughts can create a dense effect on you where it weighs you down spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And that's why I keep saying you become your thoughts. If you think you're fucked up in the head, guess what happens? You become fucked up in the head. If you think you fail at everything you're doing, you think you're a failure, you become a failure. It works the other way. If you think you are a positive person and a successful person, if you start vibrating on that frequency and thinking on that frequency, guess what starts to happen? You become that. You become your thoughts, okay? So you have to change the density of your thoughts, and by weighing, you shall be judged. You're judged by your thoughts. People don't realize that bullshit concept that they came up with in religion, judgment, deals with the mystical aspects of this concept here when dealing with spiritual alchemy. Your very thoughts are judging you on a continual basis. That is your judgment. That is the concept of when you get into the weighing of the scales, or the ma'at, the judgment. When you see the ma'at and the scales, this represents you're always the internal war that goes on in the subconscious mind, where one is judged by their thoughts and what was the intent of that individual's thoughts. It's always the intent behind the thought which creates the judgment. Because people will do shit on the surface. For an example, people will do shit and maybe help a homeless person or donate to charity. But what was the intent of it? Was it really a sincere intent from the bottom of their heart, out of love and concern to help that individual? Or was the intent that fueled the action because they wanted somebody to see them and be seen as somebody that's charitable or helpful? So that's where you create the judgment. Because on the external aspect, you try to present it as you're doing it out of pure care and love of your heart. But really the intent that was fueling it, you just were doing it to be seen. That's what this judgment thing is about. Now, religions took these concepts and made them physical. And they literally took these stories of the inner workings of the mind and they made them literal and created fictitious physical beings to explain these stories. They simplified it, and certain individuals to this very day get caught up and confused because they don't understand that a lot of this stuff is symbology and deals with a lot of symbolic information. Okay. First, you must free yourself from the roots of denial, which keep you earthbound. So if you doubt yourself, what does it say here? It's going to keep you earthbound. You'll never be able to transcend those levels spiritually. You must free yourself of all denial, meaning if you say in your mind, oh, I can't do this, then guess what? You've already defeated yourself before you have even begun. So don't even waste your time. You must rid yourself of all denial, is what this is saying. Because it keeps you earthbound, which is the lead of your existence. Lead is something heavy. So by thinking like this and having this mindset, you become so weighed down that you vibrate so hard on the physical realm that your spirituality just becomes non-existent. Your consciousness becomes shut down. It can't expand. It can't evolve. This is what this is talking about. And invert them into the roots of heaven planted in the golden light above. Then to become subtler, rid yourself of fear and follow your lightest thoughts as they rise. To become denser, seek sensation and expression and follow your heaviest thoughts as they plummet. But do not linger in heaven. On the earth is where your work takes place. For in the rarefied atmosphere of consciousness, thoughts are actions, and all thoughts are in just one mind. And all results are in just one thing. Now, this is what mental alchemy is about. I mean, if you can't understand it, I just don't understand why people are still, some people, if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. I'm not understanding why some people still are not getting this shit, unfortunately. But then I have to come to the realization this is not for everybody. If you still want to worship Allah, you still want to go to church, you still want to keep laws in a book called the Torah from 6,000 years, that go back several thousand years, and you want to play ancient Hebrew Israelite, you're still confined and you're a mental slave, because it confirms that you still cannot accept the reality that the very essence of the Creator, the divine, exists within you, not outside of you. Okay? And their very Bible and holy books left tidbits of it, but people ignore the spirituality when the Bible talks about the third eye, mentioned in the book of Matthew. When Jesus says when the body is full of light, the body becomes one. The eye and the mind, the body becomes one when it's filled with light. It mentions specifically this third eye. It says the mind and the body become one. People have no idea what that's talking about. Okay? What does it mean when the body becomes full of light? People have no clue. They miss some of these key elements. Okay? There's a list of them that you can go through. Here's the other one. You hear Christians loving to quote John chapter 1 verse 1, and you get all the bullshit interpretations, because when you go back into the Aramaic Hebrew, it's not what they're explaining to you in English. It says, "A light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not." Right? I've heard every whacked out interpretation for that. Okay? That light that shines in the darkness, okay? You hear the term black light, okay? Because remember, as I said, out of chaos comes organization. So that intellect, that divine intellect that permeates that darkness, people don't recognize it. Okay? They don't know how to access it, so they trivialize it and make it physical. But there's a list of other shit you can go through, but not to get into the religious bullshit. But this is the thing that you have to grasp. Remember, I said the one thing. It's all connected to the one thing. There's no separation here. Stop separating it from yourself. Really analyze and put in perspective how this works for you, because that's where the work comes in. It's not going to be the same method and the same way for everybody, because it's going to vary from individual to individual. That's why belonging to these Mickey Mouse clubs and these organizations and these religions don't work, because that one dogma is not applicable to everybody. Okay? And this is why individuals who I like to say have a disturbed soul, or your individuals that jump from organization to organization, religion to religion, because their soul cannot find no true inner peace in any of these dogmas. And like I said before, these are your people that one day you see them, they were Christians, and then you see them a little later, and now they black Hebrew Israelites, and then they Muslims, and then they Sufi, or they Buddhists. So their soul is disturbed and can't find that balancement of the inner peace, so they keep jumping from dogma to dogma and religion to religion. It's that simple, man. It's not that deep. This shows a disturbed mind and a disturbed soul. That simple. But anyway, I'm gonna stop there. I think give enough information on that level. Other than that, don't forget to tune in to the radio show coming up this Thursday. We're gonna have Brother Panic on. Following week after that, we'll have Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum back on, and then we're going to do some more shows ourselves, as we've been getting a good response from the shows that we're doing. And if you didn't catch the show last Thursday, I would definitely suggest that you most definitely go listen to it, because we went in dealing with spiritual trauma and how it affects the psyche, and I'm going to do a class on that here. But definitely check that show out. And again, that show, we come on every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Awakening Universal Minds on TalkShoe.com. You can see all the links here on the YouTube page, the Mother Nubia Inc. Google page. If you need to contact me, KHNUM19 at gmail.com. That's KHNUM19 at gmail.com. You can definitely reach me there if you have any questions or concerns, or just something you want to share, as long as it's positive. That's pretty much it. Again, for those that are contacting me about spiritual consultation classes, trying to schedule it accordingly. Consultations I try to fit in during the week at nighttime, most likely after 8-9 p.m. So I schedule it accordingly to that. But if you're interested in that, you can email me at that same email address, and we can work that out and adjust it. So having said that, I will see everybody on the next class. Peace.